Hello everyone. Welcome to your top 5 to stay alive for October 2018. Well, today's October 3rd. I know you were looking in your email box on October 1st and 2nd, but I had a scratchy throat and didn't feel I could make it through. But we're going to try today. Here we go. Are you ready for your top 5? Topic number 1. You know what? For many, heading back to school or off to college means lots of new books, laptops, headphones, and other gear. But if GlaxoSmithKline and Pfizer have their way, it will mean that all kids 10 to 25 will also get jabbed with one of their recently approved meningitis B vaccines. 4 years ago, we told you about how Big Pharma managed to fast-track one of these new shots so quickly that when the first batch arrived, administered to college students in New Jersey and California, it wasn't even approved by the FDA. An outbreak had been hyped so skillfully that the vaccine called Bexsero was allowed into the U.S. on an emergency use basis. Truth be told, it really wasn't an outbreak at all. It was more likely a fairy tale conjured up to sell more Bexsero. In fact, where meningitis B is concerned, you actually have a better chance of being hit by lightning than coming down with it. By now, Bexsero, along with another drug called Trumemba, has given the FDA stamp of approval, and guess what? Much to the dismay of the drug makers, doctors aren't recommending them, saying that they really have no idea how long the protection of these vaccines last, or even if they're safe to begin with. Pharma and its close friends at the CDC, however, don't take these kinds of problems lying down, and now that school is starting, this is their chance to convince you by whatever means it takes to get your child or grandchild to roll up their sleeve. I've rarely seen the media give any published study the royal treatment as much as it has this one that's attempting to sell you on these meningitis B shots. Well, it's gotten more coverage than Kim Kardashian's latest red carpet look. Now, if you're going to do a study on a vaccine, safety and effectiveness are usually the main two factors to put to the test. But instead, this research team, which included 3 CDC staff members, set out to study the question of why more doctors aren't going to hound giving out these shots for their patients. Nothing to do with safety. This vaccine-pushing group of researchers concluded that the real reason is because doctors don't know enough about meningitis B to begin with. Seriously? Well, I thought that sounded fishy, but it gets worse. In taking a closer look at some of the stories behind the sensational headlines, I discovered a bit of fact twisting by telling us that 4,000 people in the U.S. get sick with bacterial meningitis every year. It makes submitting to these new shots seem that much more urgent. But actually, that figure was contrived by lumping all types of bacterial meningitis together. The real story is that the only type of meningitis, the B strain, that Trumemba and Bexsero are intended to prevent is extremely rare. Well, under 200 cases are reported in the U.S. every year. In fact, in 2016, there was only 130, and many experts say that it's typically well below that in the 50 to 60 range. Despite how rare cases of meningitis B actually are in the U.S., these two vaccines are still expected to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars for the two drug makers, a figure that could quickly go into the billions in the next few years. Plus, we don't need a study to find out why docs aren't recommending the shots. Just ask them. Many point to the red flags regarding safety, or as Dr. Alison Kempe, who just so happens to be the lead author of this new study, admitted, doctors have limited experience with the longevity and safety of the vaccine. So here's the real lowdown on these vaccines and what you won't be reading in the mainstream press. Both Trumemba and Bexsero were rushed through FDA's Breakthrough Therapy program with limited testing. As of last year, close to 3,000 reports about side effects from both of these shots were filed with the Federal Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, whose tallies are notoriously underreported. Manufacturing a shot for meningitis B was considered extremely dicey from a safety standpoint, as what's called the sugar sequences on the surface of these particular bacteria closely match what's found in the human brain. So that tough nut wasn't cracked perfectly. Antibodies from the shot could attack the brain and nerves, causing lifelong damage. Meningitis is, of course, serious disease, but it doesn't fly through the air and you can't catch it by being in a classroom. The best way for your school-bound child or grandchild to stay well is to keep their immune system strong by eating well, taking vitamin C and D every day, getting enough sleep, washing their hands more often, and not sharing any items that touch the lips or mouth, such as lip gloss, utensils, and beverages. Should they come into contact with anyone suspected of having meningitis, however, a protective course of antibiotics should be enough to keep them safe. Topic number 2. Shingrix may be the biggest mass experiment on everyone over 50 to date. Since it was first brought to you on the market last October, it's been selling like ice-cold lemonade in the middle of the Sahara Desert. In fact, so many older folks have been convinced to take that jab that pharmacies are reporting shortages and news outlets are trying to help their audiences track down where to get it if they haven't already. Of course, ever since the get-go of this shingles vaccine, I've been warning you to stop, look, and listen before rolling up your sleeve. But it's only now that this blockbuster has hit the market big time and everyone over 50 is being bullied into getting 2 doses of it that some doctors are starting to question its safety. Great timing, right? However, the safety of Shingrix shouldn't just be called into question because we know for sure how dangerous it can be thanks to one of the cats that have been let out of the bag. As it turns out, it could possibly reactivate autoimmune disease out of remission or spur the onset of a new one, even if you're an otherwise healthy senior. I'm talking about such debilitating and painful diseases as rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, arthritis of the spine, and lupus. No one wants to experience the pain and itching of shingles, but for everyone and anyone who has suffered the agony of rheumatoid arthritis, stiffness, and joint swelling, the fatigue, unexplained fevers and rashes that come along with lupus, or the chronic diarrhea and tissue damage of irritable bowel disease, you know there can be conditions even worse than shingles. Of course, you won't hear a thing about that from the mainstream media. Instead, it looks like the pharma giant behind the shot, GlaxoSmithKline, decided to spend its time covering that little detail up by excluding patients with any of these immune diseases from their drug trials. And now it's busy peddling a vaccine that contains a chemical that has never been used in human beings, one that is known to be so potent in its toxicity that only a couple of years ago scientists at the National Institute of Health were convinced that it would never be used in people. So, does this mean that Big Pharma has figured out a way to make it less toxic? Judging by the way Shingrix causes more side effects such as fever, muscle pain, and flu symptoms than any other vaccine given to adults, I don't think so. However, you want to look at it, Shingrix is bad news and not an experiment you want to be opting into. Fortunately, there's an easy way to steer clear of shingles attack, no drugs required. Just follow this advice and take a daily dose of 500 micrograms of vitamin B12, which is a powerful way to protect your nervous system. Of course, Cardio for Life does contain 500 micrograms of B12 per serving. So there you go. And should you come down with shingles, taking a shot of B12 is the very best way to alleviate the symptoms and shorten the duration of the attack. It's not fun, but it can be prevented. Number 3. If you're one of the many people suffering from angina, chest pain related to exertion, when you're exercising or even just walking, what's the best thing to do? A, have a stent placed in your artery, or B, start taking a safe herbal remedy that's been used as a traditional medicine for centuries. Tough. A lot of doctors would tell you the first choice is the only way to go. But guess what? Research is telling us that they couldn't be more wrong, and you do have another option. Even though many patients have multiple stents inserted for that reason. In fact, one poor guy had 67 stents put in him. It turns out that even just one may be too many. Your doctor will promise that getting a stent, or several of them, is such an easy-peasy procedure that you'll be back in action in the blink of an eye. Only that's not always the case. To illustrate just how risky the surgery can actually be, look no further than the latest device approved by the FDA. It's meant to stop the life-threatening bleeding that can occur if a doctor accidentally punctures an artery. When you get a stent, your doctor threads a tube into your artery along with a contraction to prop it open. And yes, that tiny mesh object can poke a hole through your delicate vascular tissue, but don't count on this latest device to save you. Out of the 80 patients whose arteries were punctured during the pre-approval process, 2 died while doctors were attempting to fix it, plus 5 more died after being successfully sealed. I guess it wasn't so successful. The FDA calls this arterial puncture wound a rare complication, but when a procedure is overused as stenting, plenty of people are going to be put in harm's way for no good reason. And apart from such risks, stenting is done a lot more often than it should be. Last year, a big study out of the UK, which wasn't the first, found that being hustled into having a stent inserted won't do a lick of good unless you're having a heart attack. The doctors will race to put a stent in you if all you are experiencing is stable angina, pain in the chest with exertion that goes away with rest. Not only is stenting useless for chest pain, but it's also of no value when it comes for preventing heart problems. And along with puncturing an artery, stenting can also trigger arrhythmias and an excessive tissue growth where it's been placed. But there's a far safer approach for caring for your heart. 4 gold standard studies have found that those taking 5,000 milligrams of arginine, as found in the Cardio for Life again, daily can slow arterial plaque formation by 80%. It's even been shown to reduce plaque already in the arteries. But if your doctor is one who insists that having a stent is the only way to go, that's when you need to get a second opinion or even a third. Topic number 4. If you've got diabetes, you know how it could rule your life. There are constant finger pricks, the worry about how low blood sugar or high blood sugar, and the nerve damage that can be suddenly strike. But amazingly, Big Pharma has managed to make things even worse by turning diabetes into a trip through a chamber of horrors. The latest darlings of the drug world for those with type 2 are called SGLT2 inhibitors. These are the meds with familiar names like Invokana, Farxiga, and Jardiance that we've been bombarded with TV commercials about for years now. And you know how those ads have to do a quick rundown of the most awful side effects. Well, try this one on for size. It will cause a flesh-eating genital infection. Ow! It's enough to give you the shudders even if you've never popped one of these pills. But for those who have and still do, this will hopefully be the last straw for diabetes drugs that should never have been approved in the first place. I've been sounding an alarm about this dangerous group of meds from the beginning, and while all medications can come along with potential side effects, this bunch is unique in the horrors that they can cause. For example, along with the last year's finding that Invokana can double your odds of suffering an amputation, all these SGLT2 inhibitors can put you at risk for bladder cancer, kidney failure, hyperkalemia, which is super high dangerous levels of potassium in the blood, low blood pressure, serious dehydration, and a dangerous urinary tract infection. The FDA is now taking that last warning a giant step further, recently issuing a safety announcement, a condition called Fournier's gangrene. And yes, it's just as terrifying as it sounds. This infection can cause your private parts to literally be eaten away. If that's not enough to give you the chills, the FDA is saying that the 12 cases of Fournier's gangrene reported over the past 5 years in both men and women all required disfiguring surgeries. Complications included the death of 1 patient. Sure, a dozen people does not seem like a lot, but don't think for 1 minute that 12 is the total number of diabetics who have suffered from this horror. First reports to the FDA are purely voluntary, unless you're a drug maker, and believe me, they're not reporting it. And it's known that only a fraction of any side effects ever make it into the agency. Second, even the FDA says that for all of the other diabetes meds on the market, only 6 cases of this flesh-eating disease have been reported, and that's during the last 3 decades. So this is definitely just a fraction of those who have had to endure this horrific condition, especially when you realize that 1.7 million prescriptions were given out for these SGLT2 inhibitor drugs last year alone. And while the FDA was sitting on this frightening information about genital Gangrene, it allowed one of these meds, Jardiance, to be pitched as something that can help prevent the heart attacks and strokes. You've seen the commercial where people go up to the wall, and how far do you think you're? Well, what if I told you that it prevents heart disease? As we told you, the so-called heart benefits was allowed by the FDA based on a statistical mumbo-jumbo called relative risk. We've talked about this over and over. All the cholesterol drugs, all the drugs are all this relative risk. What is relative risk? It is a smoke and mirrors deception that's done all the time by simply estimating how many in the group are likely to come down with a particular condition. Then, for example, if two patients are expected to develop a disease, but only one does, you'll hear the amazing drug in question was able to lower the risk by 50%. In other words, that claim isn't worth the label it's written on. The list of SGLT2 drugs is long, one that includes Invokana, Invokana Met, Invokana Met XR, Farxiga, Zegdual XR, Q-Turn, Jardiance, Glyzambia, Synergardi XR, Stegato, Seglumar. I can't even pronounce these. If you have type 2 diabetes and are taking one of these medications, the time has come to have a serious chat with your doctor about how to get off it immediately and what alternatives you have. Look, we've been lied to, deceived, and bled dry by Big Pharma's tactics and the FDA's indifference for a long time now. But whatever you do, don't let this ongoing charade cause you to suffer the agony of amputation, kidney failure, dehydration, or losing the most private parts of your body. Jeez. Topic number 5. Yeah, we have to conclude at some point. Guys, this one's for you. Let's face it, it's the most awkward part of your physical. You already know what I'm going to tell you, right? You turn around, you hear that rubber glove go on with the snap, and out of the corner of your eye, you see the doctor reach into his drawer. No, he's not getting you a lollipop. He's got a big squeeze tube of lube in there. Some guys stand stone silence. Others try to break the tension with a joke, and it's always something like, aren't you going to buy me a drink first? Well, friend, I'm here to say the whole thing's a joke, and you're the punchline. It's the dreaded digital rectal exam. Digital as in finger up, you know what, which is about as mechanical as you can get. And new research shows how absolutely pointless it is. Well, maybe not entirely pointless. It's also pointing a finger, or pointing finger after all. But as far as what it does for your health, it's certainly meaningless. Doctors think they can use the finger like the world's worst divining rod, but instead of water, they're trying to detect the warning signs of prostate cancer. But the new study finds zero evidence to back this awkward, uncomfortable, and sometimes even painful practice. And those fingers aren't nearly as good at detecting cancer risk as doctors think. Just about anything a doctor feels in there will feel like cancer to him. But the new study shows that he's usually wrong. The analysis of research on more than 9,000 patients find that the test is much more likely to lead to a false positive than a true positive. Now, on the other hand, maybe you're thinking of the end result. A guy who thinks he has cancer finds out he doesn't. Great. He's relieved, out celebrating life, and better safe than sorry, right? Well, not so fast. A false positive causes days, maybe weeks or months of stress. It also means a biopsy, a painful procedure. It can lead to infection and other complications. Okay, so maybe then you'd argue that it's better to think you have cancer when you don't than think you don't and have cancer when you do. But even so, it's still not worth it. The study finds zero impact on mortality in patients who get the old finger poke. You won't be safe, and you almost certainly will be sorry. Most prostate cancers don't need treatment, but when they get detected, they get treated anyway, leading to a nightmare cycle that can involve surgery, radiation, hormones, and more. The result? Diapers, bedroom problems, mood disorders, and the list goes on and on. All from a doc literally sticking his finger where it doesn't belong. Obviously, there might be times when you need a test like that, when you're bleeding out the you-know-what, but as general screening, tell your doctor to keep his digits to himself. Oh, there you go, man. All right, ladies, I have nothing for you. Whew. Testimonies. Hello, Dr. Elward. I've been taking Cardio for Life for a period of 2 years now. The reason I am taking this product is that I had a heart attack in 2016. I was told by a doctor who put a stent in me there were 2 other arteries that had 30 to 40% blockage. I'm a believer in naturopathy. I wanted to investigate what treatments might be offered through naturopathy. I went to a Nature's Emporium store in Newmarket, Ontario, where I met a lady who introduced me to your product. She had an instrument called a digital pulse wave analyzer that could test to measure if there was any plaque in my arteries and also if the plaque was at a dangerous level. She suggested that time for me to start using Cardio for Life, and since then I wish to tell you that my experience has been very positive. My stamina and energy level have been really good. I'm in the process of seeing her again to get another reading on my heart and arteries. I do not know if there's any other method aside from intrusive surgery to see the conditions of one's heart and arteries. We now have the Smart Pulse. I am hoping for positive results. I am going to continue to use Cardio for Life as my body is responding so favorably to it. When people I meet are shocked when they find out how old I am, well, I chuckle to myself, but deep down, I'm thinking maybe it's the grape or orange drink that I'm taking. No, I'm sure it is. Best regards, Ron. Thanks, Ron. Dr. Harry, I've been using health products from Health Guardian for several years, and I'm hooked for life. I especially like the cardio product that induces nitric oxide production in your cardiovascular system and the colon cleanse for the gut and digestive health. The products taste great, work extremely well, and are affordable. You won't go wrong, people. Thanks, Charlie. Dr. Harry, I've never written a review. I know there are thousands of cleansers out there. However, this is the only one I have found, the Health Guardian Cleanse, to truly do all that it promises. It gently cleanses your stomach overnight. It would also prevent me from late night eating. If I started to feel hungry around 8, I would take the drink and it would fill me up so much that my cravings were instantly gone. I cannot say enough about this cleaner. You have to try it for yourself. You will not be disappointed. I will guarantee you will come back for more. Thank you for that, Nicolasa. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our top 5 to stay alive. We are actually working on the new website, healthguardian.com. We hope to go live with it this month. We're testing it now because of the affiliate program. There's reporting and commissions and all this stuff, so it's intricate and auto ships, and so we want to make sure it's working perfectly before we launch it. Hopefully this month, if not, for sure next month. But I think you're going to like what you see. It's actually taken after Amazon so that it's simple for people. If you refer to somebody, they can sign in as a guest. They don't have to register and check out. We're giving discounts no matter how many products you buy. Before there were packages. Now if you buy any products, you're going to get a discount. So we're saving you money. We're actually lowering the price on some things, and I think you're going to like it. But for now, until next month, which is Thanksgiving, can't wait. This is Dr. Harry saying, hey, I love you all. God bless you all. And we'll see you again next month.